The Fifth Estate is the latest of sort of several ongoing movie productions, documentary and drama, about Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. Don't start yawning.
No, I was.
You were yawning.
I was not. I was mock laughing at an editorial aside, which was exclusively for me.
Okay, would you mind not doing that? Oh, fine. It was somebody. Okay, fine. So anyway, it's essentially the story of Julian Assange and Daniel Berg and the creation and expansion of WikiLeaks.
Who's Daniel Berg then?
He's the other bloke, and it's him. This is partly based upon his version of events, and it is worth saying right at the beginning that, as with so many of these things, Julian Assange has already said that the whole thing is going to be, a massive propaganda thing, and he's disowned it. He has nothing to do with it. He's not involved in the production.
Well, he couldn't really be involved, could he? Because he's still stuck in the embassy.
No, but he's in contact. He's not in isolation. There is such a thing as him being. He actually has been in contact. He sent a long. He had a correspondence with. He had with Benedict Cumberbatch saying, "Please don't play this role. Please don't play me. Don't do it," because he doesn't approve of the film. Anyway, so if I could get where I was going to, film starts with this title sequence, which does the invention of the printing press. It goes from painting, cave painting, and then writing, and then the printing press, and then the printed word, and then books, and then the internet, and blah, 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 blah. And it all zooms until we get to 2010, Offices of the Guardian. People are running around. We want to hit go. We want to hit go. No, we can't do it yet. We haven't done the redactions
What do they
yet.
want to hit go for?
They're in the Offices of the Guardian on the eve of the publication of all these sort of documents. This is how the film plays out. Right. Can we go yet? No. The New York Times, they're going to go early, but we're not ready to go. Oh, never. They've hit go. It's all go. Then we go
Thunderbirds are go.
Exactly, Thunderbirds are go. Then we go back from that, back a few years to the setting up of WikiLeaks and the meeting of Assange and Daniel Berg, and then the stories of the people that they, the stories about corrupt banks and stories about neo-Nazis and all this sort of stuff, all of which bring us back to the point at which Julian Assange, great internet freedom fighter, is having to deal with the old press in order to get some form of legitimacy. Here's a clip with Benedict Cumberbatch as Julian Assange, and you get the tone of the film. Here we go.
Amazing how someone could talk for 10 minutes without actually saying anything.
You said you would hear him out.
What are you proposing?
An international media coalition, legitimizing you as a news organization. Let the US attack, we print the news. And if we put you on the moral high ground with Mother Teresa, with Nelson Mandela...
But they'd still get their exclusives.
Look, finding stories in all these documents, that's a lot of work, it's a lot of time. You can't expect us to do it without an incentive.
And then what, we set a date? You run your stories, we post the raw data.
And obviously all these documents have names, sources, US informants. You'll need to redact them.
Well, WikiLeaks doesn't edit.
Well, that's all very well, but The Guardian can't be seen to condone publishing something that puts lives in danger. And morals aside, it's about how you're perceived. You're starting an information war with the United States government. You mustn't hand them ammunition.
Was that Professor Lupin?
Yeah, David Thewlis. Well, yes,
He's great.
He is, and he's channeling Paddy Considine in The Bourne Ultimatum, to take it back to that. This is one of those films that has that very traditional movie sense of what it's like being in a newspaper office. It's full of news journalists coming in dressed in combat jackets, a little bit late and a bit cross and a bit stubbly, having just drunk a whiskey, and everybody get out because I've got some important things to do with it, and waving everyone's. And there's an awful lot of, because Peter Capaldi plays Alan Rossbridger, there's an awful lot of him standing around with looking rather concerned, whilst David Thewlis does a lot of rumping like that.
Is this a comedy?
No. So no, although it is possible to see comedy in those. So if you've ever been inside a newspaper office, you know that very few versions of the cinema version of what a newspaper office looks like. It then, in dealing with the story of WikiLeaks itself, has that age-old problem of how do you dramatise people on internet keyboards tapping away? Well, how do you do that? Well, of course, what Condon does is exactly what many people have done, which is they look back to a film that everyone sneered at the time, which they look back to Hackers, which kind of dramatised the internet as a three-dimensional space. And in itself, that took inspiration. You could take that way back to Tron, I suppose, to going inside computers. But it takes that idea and it sort of dramatises it, that when we're in the internet, we have sort of endless rows of desks and endless rows of filing cabinets down which the protagonists can, walk and rifle through documents as if what they're doing is hacking the net. And what we get is the central story between these two characters, one of whom seems to be terribly headstrong and desperate to publish and, driven by things we don't really understand, and the other one who is more concerned and, is worried about the consequences of all these things. And you get a tension in it which is very much like that tension in The Social Network, in which you have, this kind of internet revolution which is created by two characters who then fall out with each other. And one of them is kind of easier to like and it seems to have more of a conscience, and the other one is slightly more headstrong but becomes the person about whom the whole story is. Fairly recently, we had the Alex Gibney documentary, We Steal Secrets, the story of WikiLeaks, and which again, Julian Assange wrote. On WikiLeaks there was a very long, detailed riposte. Going through the script, saying this. I mean, this appears to be the case with everything. Is everything comes with a detailed riposte, and that's fine. In the case of the documentary, I thought the documentary did a pretty good job of sifting through. I mean, obviously, all documentaries are partisan. There's no such thing as objective truth. Everything is to do with edited truth. That's absolutely the case. But I thought the documentary had an interesting line, an interesting case. What you usually get is with a drama, it'll have a clearer through line, because with dramas you tend to simplify things and people become characters and ciphers rather than, in fact, reality, which is very difficult and it's got lots of ragged edges. The irony of this situation is that it's actually the other way round. In the case of the Alex Gibney, there seemed to be a very clear line taken on Assange, against which Assange took, incidentally, obviously. In the case of this, despite the claims that it's going to be it's going to be some kind of propaganda job, it's very even-handed, and it's even-handed to the point of not really knowing where it's going. And here's the key issue: you get a terrific performance from Benedict Cumberbatch, who gets the mannerisms, gets the voice, gets the sort of physical presence. He's a brilliant actor. He's a really brilliant actor, and he's done a great job with this. But what he doesn't have is a role which allows him to sort of follow the role through, because the film seems terribly undecided about Julian Assange, despite how Assange himself may feel about the portrayal. Watching it, I felt that it really wasn't quite sure what it felt about.
Is that the same as Balanced?
Well, that's the interesting thing. I don't think it is. I think in this particular case, what it is it's like a fearfulness. It's like in an interview you did recently, you said it's like we're treading on eggshells, and there was a sense of that about this. Yes, you can see it as balanced, because Bill Condon is a very, very balanced director. I mean, you look at the work that he did in things like Kinsey, and he's somebody he's a safe pair of hands. He did The Last Twilight, incidentally, and he's not somebody who would ever go in for something that was, I think, maliciously intended at all. But the strange thing is that in the case of this particular drama, a little bit of clear direction, a little bit of clear, this is where the story's going, this is how we're taking it, would have gone a long way. So the funny thing is that despite the fact that the objection has been it's fiction posing as fact, and obviously it's a one-sided story because it's based on somebody else's version of accounts that is, therefore disputed, I felt that the thing that was hobbling the movie more than anything was a crucial indecision about exactly where it was going. Partly, of course, because the story is still playing out. The story is still in flux. We're not at the end of this story, so it's fairly early on to have, a dramatic feature. Partly because I think, exactly as you said, it's trying to be balanced and even-handed, although that's, in a way, you're in a hiding to nothing, because even if you do that, you're going to end up being told that you're one-sided. So part of you feels like, well, if that's the case, why don't you just make it with a certain... And I certainly felt that with Cumberbatch's position, that there was a great performance looking for a stronger vehicle. There was a spirit in what he was capturing physically, and in terms of his voice, and in terms of his presence, and in terms of his looks. And he was moving forward, but the drama wasn't moving forward with him. And when you say that thing about, is it a comedy? No, it's not a comedy at all. But obviously there are moments of comedy when you see the people storming around in the offices of The Guardian and having those kind of conversations, and that will play very differently when you're in America, obviously, because it's just different when you kind of think, yeah, well, we all know where that is, and we all know what that's really like. And the Guardian journalists themselves have made an awful lot of this. They said, we're not that beardy. There aren't that many beards.
But we imagine that they are. So that's
exactly, we imagine that they are. And there's this kind of the moments of revelation about we've created a monster and all those kind of conversations. There's been debate about how truthful or represent. The thing is, it's a drama. It's a fiction based on fact. Fine, but it is a fiction. So if you're going to make a fiction, just go for it a little bit more. I think the problem is it ends up feeling tepid. It ends up feeling lukewarm. It ends up feeling directionless. And the strange thing is that that's the one thing that the Gibney documentary didn't. The Gibney documentary, although it was hearing from all these different sides, from all these different people, taking all these different factual elements, it felt like it was going there.